Now, we go on to a game that is a compilation of these two vertical shooter in one, and that is game number 7, the Raiden project. Based on the two arcade games, Raiden and Raiden 2, published by Sony Computer Entertainment and developed by Saibu Kaihatsu. In the first Raiden, it takes place in the year 2090, when a race of collective alien life forms known as the Crystals made Earth a target of invasion. In response, the world gathered together under one organization, the Vanquished Crystal Defense, and developed a cutting-edge weapon built from crystal technology. And in the sequel, 3 years have passed since the Crystals were defeated. The remnants of the Crystal Invasion Force regrouped to launch another invasion on Earth. The Vanquished Crystal Defense had developed a new model of the Fighting Thunder, with a new weapon for this new battle in humanity's war against the Crystals. In both cases, you need to stop these aliens and destroy their armada before it's too late, otherwise the aliens will destroy our planet. The development of both Raiden 1 and Raiden 2 both began somewhere in the late 80s or early 90s. MOS's CEO Toshinobu Kamazawa was originally wanted to make a sequel to Dynamite Duke, but Saibu Kaihatsu later decided to develop a shoot 'em up instead of a sequel. Even though Kamazawa, the creator of Dynamite Duke, had a negative outlook, but was later over it when development was halfway through. It mostly borrows ideas from popular titles such as Capcom's 1942, Xevious from Namco, and Twin Cobra by Toplan. When it was released in arcade and later home consoles, it wasn't received well at first, but few months later they eventually did, selling around 17,000 units through steady sales for a year. And then 3 years later they made a sequel, Raiden 2, which is more the same since almost every single thing was added from the first game. But the only difference is that its graphics is much crisper than the first, but that's really much it. Unfortunately, I can't find any reviews about the sequel, either good or mixed reviews, when it was released in the arcade. But then, when it was time to put the two games in a compilation to the PlayStation, they did add some features on it. Like the opening animation is a 3D rendering of the player's ship taking on the first stage boss from Raiden 2. A conversion that includes difficulty settings, credit limits, selection between original and rearranged soundtrack, on-screen text positioning, and the ability to save high scores with a memory card, and it includes a horizontal mode. Users of widescreen format televisions/monitors can turn their sets vertically and play the game in its proper arcade aspect ratio. Though doing this can damage the monitors/TV, and you also need to be in this position, either lying down or bending your neck like this. But that will lead you into a bad neck pain. I know it sort of worked with a CRTV monitor due that they're shaped as a square box and easily flip it sideways, unless if it weighs a ton. But as of today, we have flat screen HD TVs and can't be flipped sideways because there's nothing to hold on. So yeah, I don't recommend trying this, unless if you have a CRTV. When it was released in Japan in January 27th, 1995, North America in September 9th, 1995, and Europe in November 1st, 1995, shockingly, it received mixed to average reviews and was not a critical hit as they were expected. Why, you may ask? Well, with Raiden 1 being home ported to many home consoles like the SNES, Genesis, TurboGrafx-16, both Hue and CD-ROM, and Jaguar came out before it. This one for the PS1 wasn't that a big of a deal, except for the music. It felt like Raiden 1 had become dated and not as good from its original release, making it boring. But for the sequel, it did had some good reviews, saying that it's so much fun and challenging than the first. Why? Because during that time, the sequel did not have any home ports at all, meaning this was a chance to play the sequel on home consoles. And yeah, it's no surprise people liked it. Especially Electronic Gaming Monthly saying that the sequel is better than the original. However, when Next Generation reviewed the game, they stated that Raiden Project is a solid indicator of the PlayStation's ability to manipulate sprites and as such, will find a welcome home with early adopters. But with endless credits at your disposal and some poorly structured action, it's an ultimately shallow experience. And another one, GamePro, complained about the slowdown in the 2-player mode, and concluded that the Raiden project is closer to where games have been than where they're going. But overall, it did have a decent run and were truly the games just like from the arcades, since both Raiden 1 and 2 are based directly on the arcade originals, and during the time was unlike previous arcade ports. Nothing else to say about. Moving on to the review part, the graphics of both games are fine in single player, but in multiplayer, yeah, you could tell that it's getting a bit choppy, but doesn't ruin the game most of the time. The presentation is alright, the 3D opening animation is nice, showing the first 2 games, even though it's primitive nowadays, and you could change screen modes from original to widescreen, and even on vertical, but like I said before, you need to either lie down or bend your neck in order to get the full experience, which again, I don't recommend doing it, unless if you want to have neck pain. The music is fine on the original, but great on the rearranged for some kick-ass tunes. And finally, the gameplay. They're hard, but in a good way. It's very challenging and easily lose a lot of lives. Unless if you're a professional at this. For me, I have a very hard time playing both of them and easily get a game over at level 2 or 3 in both of them. But I can easily say that Raiden 1, even though it's a good import to the arcade, does lack challenge and not enjoyable, mainly because you keep dying a lot and easily the hardest cause all the enemy attacks and so many bullets spreading everywhere. But for the sequel, even though I have the same issues, at least does have so creativity and fun factor to it, especially the less bullet attacks, but still get a game over anyway. So overall, both of these games have flaws and can be tough, but it still have some fun and the rearranged music is enjoyable. Enough said. Moving on to the conclusion. Raiden 1 is not good due to the harder difficulty and does not have any fun factor to it and is dated compared to its sequels afterwards. And Raiden 2 is better than the lesser of the two evils, but still have less difficulty to it and has many unique backgrounds. But both of them combined into one compilation is overall good and highly recommended if you only like to play the sequel. I know they're not the best games, since it has some problems like the slowdowns, but quickly ignored if you don't have the problem. And also pick the arranged music version, because like I said, it kicks ass. So with that, I give my official rating a 4 out of 6. Next time on the PlayStation Years, I'll be tackling a game that's a 2D platformer, even though the system was supposed to be a 3D powerhouse and wasn't supposed to have 2D games on the system. And it was developed from a French company who would later to be recognized as we know today. What is that game? Well, I'll tell you in the next review. Thanks for watching.